I'm the district attorney's daughter with a failing heart. When our HOA president blocked my ambulance because I was disrupting neighborhood standards, she sealed her own fate. My father built the case, but Margaret Patterson destroyed herself, choosing cruelty over a child's life. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The rain hit my office window as I reviewed files. But my mind kept going to Emma. My daughter. My beautiful, brave 15-year-old who fought every day just to breathe normally. The call came at 2:47 p.m. Mr. Richardson, this is Mercy General. Your daughter Emma collapsed at school. Her heart. I didn't hear the rest. I was already running. Emma sat at our kitchen table, her oxygen tank humming beside her. She was doing homework, her face pale but determined. Born with a heart defect, she'd had 4 surgeries before age 10. Doctors called her a miracle. I called her my fighter. Dad, Mrs. Patterson stopped me again today, Emma said quietly, not looking up. My jaw tightened. Margaret Patterson. HOA president of Riverside Meadows, our family-friendly neighborhood. The woman who made our lives hell for 6 months. What did she say this time, sweetheart? Emma's voice got smaller. She said the medical truck yesterday was disrupting the neighborhood's look. She said if we can't follow rules, maybe we should live somewhere else. Her hands shook as she held her pencil. She said it in front of my friends, Dad. They were walking home with me, and she just humiliated me. My hands became fists. As district attorney of Cumberland County, I prosecuted criminals every day. Murderers, thieves, abusers. But I'd never felt hatred like I felt for Margaret Patterson, a woman who looked at my dying daughter and saw only an inconvenience. Emma, look at me, I said gently. She lifted her eyes, tears threatening to fall. You belong here. This is your home. Don't let anyone make you feel less than perfect. She nodded, but I saw the doubt. The hurt. The way her shoulders slumped when she left the house, always nervous, afraid of seeing Margaret. Margaret Patterson didn't just break rules, she broke spirits. And she was very good at it. It started 3 months after we moved in. Emma needed a wheelchair ramp. We submitted paperwork, followed every rule. Margaret rejected it 3 times. It doesn't match the approved colors. The gradient is 2 degrees off. The handrail material isn't approved. Each rejection meant another week of me carrying Emma up the steps, watching her wince, knowing her weak heart was straining. I filed complaints. I cited disability laws. Margaret smiled coldly and found new reasons to delay. When we finally got approval after threatening legal action, she fined us for construction noise violations. $200 because workers started at 8:01 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. When I challenged it, she had time-stamped photos. She'd been watching, waiting for us to slip. Then came the medical alert sign. Emma's doctor insisted we post it, a small sign showing a critical heart patient lived here, so emergency services would know to hurry. Margaret called it visual pollution and threatened daily fines of $50 until we removed it. It's a safety issue, I argued at an HOA meeting. It's a rule violation, Margaret said, holding up the rulebook. Section 12, paragraph 4, no signs except those approved by the board. My daughter could die. Then perhaps this neighborhood isn't right for your family's needs. She said it sweetly, with a smile, while 30 neighbors watched in silence. Not one person spoke up for us. Not one. I was the district attorney. I knew the law inside and out. But Margaret had turned rules into weapons. She knew exactly how to stay legal while making our lives unbearable. Every letter was carefully worded by her lawyer son. Every fine was technically justified. My wife Sarah died when Emma was 8. A car accident on a rainy Tuesday. Emma was in the car too. They said it was a miracle she survived, though her heart never recovered. The impact caused damage that made her condition worse. Since then, it had been just us. Father and daughter against the world. Now we faced Margaret Patterson. And she didn't fight fair. The worst part was watching Emma internalize it. She started apologizing for existing. "Sorry my oxygen machine is loud, Dad. Sorry the ambulance had to come. Sorry I'm so much trouble." I'd hold her and promise it would get better. But I was lying. It was getting worse. Margaret's campaign was systematic and endless. She filed noise complaints during Emma's breathing treatments at night. She photographed our lawn and found us if grass was a quarter-inch too long. She claimed Emma's medical van was commercial traffic and cited violations. But the psychological warfare was worse. She made comments loud enough for Emma to hear. Some people shouldn't live in family neighborhoods if they can't keep standards. Or, it's unfortunate when one family's problems become everyone's burden. Emma started having panic attacks when she saw Margaret's car. She'd beg me not to go outside when Margaret was in her yard. My brave daughter, who'd survived 4 heart surgeries, was terrified of a bitter woman with a clipboard. I documented everything. Every comment, every fine, every interaction. As a DA, I knew evidence was crucial. But Margaret was careful. She never explicitly mentioned Emma's disability. She always hid behind rules. I talked to Fair Housing Act attorneys in my office. They said we had a case, but it would be long and expensive. Meanwhile, Emma's mental health was falling apart. Her therapist, Dr. Reeves, called me after a session. "Mr. Richardson, Emma is developing severe anxiety and depression. She's expressing thoughts about being a burden. We need to take this seriously." That night, I found Emma writing a letter. "What's that, sweetheart?" She quickly hid it, but I saw enough. It was an apology letter. To me. For being too much trouble. My heart shattered. 2 days before the ambulance incident, Emma had an episode at home. Her lips turned blue. Her chest heaved. I called 911, my hands shaking as I held her. "Stay with me, baby. Stay with me." The ambulance arrived in 4 minutes. For minutes that felt like hours. They stabilized her, checked her vitals. The paramedics said she'd be okay, but we needed to watch her closely. Her heart showed irregular rhythms. They recommended a hospital stay, but Emma begged to stay home. She'd spent too many nights in hospitals already. As they loaded equipment back, Margaret appeared. She stood in the street, arms crossed, face twisted with disgust. She'd been waiting. I realized she'd heard the sirens and come out deliberately. "This is the 3rd emergency vehicle this month," she announced loudly, making sure neighbors heard. "This neighborhood has standards. If you can't maintain them, perhaps assisted living would be better for your situation." One paramedic, a kind woman named Rosa, looked shocked. "Ma'am, this is a child with a serious heart condition. And this is a community with rules," Margaret snapped back. She turned to me, eyes cold. "I'm filing a formal complaint. These disturbances are affecting property values. My neighbor is trying to sell, and buyers are being scared off by constant emergency vehicles." "My daughter almost died," I said, voice shaking with rage. "And that's very sad," Margaret said, her tone suggesting it wasn't sad at all. "But your personal problems can't keep impacting the community. You signed the HOA agreement. You knew the rules." Emma heard everything from her bedroom window. That night, I held her while she cried. "Dad, am I a burden?" she whispered. "Am I ruining everything? Mrs. Patterson says I'm making property values go down. That means people are losing money because of me. Never. Never say that. You are the best thing in my life." But I could see it in her eyes. Margaret's poison had seeped in. My strong, brave daughter was starting to believe she didn't deserve to take up space in the world. I called my sister that night, after Emma fell asleep. "Rachel, I don't know what to do. She's giving up. Emma is actually giving up." Rachel, a pediatric nurse, was quiet for a moment. "James, you need to document everything. If something happens, and I pray it doesn't, but if something happens because of that woman's interference, you need evidence." "I have been documenting." "Then document more. Get cameras. Get statements from neighbors. Because that woman is going to kill your daughter, one way or another." She was right. But I didn't realize how soon it would happen. It was a Tuesday. Emma had a cardiology appointment at 3 p.m. I'd taken the afternoon off, something I rarely did. We were running late because Emma had struggled that morning, her breathing hard, her color off. "Dad, maybe we should cancel," she said weakly, slumped on the couch. "Not a chance, sweetheart. Dr. Morrison needs to check on you." I went to get her jacket. That's when I heard the thud. I ran back to the living room. Emma was on the floor, unconscious. Her lips were gray. Her chest wasn't moving right. There was a horrible stillness about her that made my blood run cold. I called 911, my voice breaking. "My daughter isn't breathing properly. She has a severe heart condition. Please hurry. Ambulance is 3 minutes away, sir." "Is she conscious?" "Barely. Please hurry." I did CPR, something I'd learned but prayed I'd never use. Her chest was so small under my hands. So fragile. I could feel her ribs, could feel how delicate she was. "Come on, Emma. Stay with me. Stay with Daddy. Don't you leave me. Don't you dare leave me." Her skin was cold. Too cold. I heard the sirens. Thank God. The ambulance was close. Then I heard something else. Shouting. I ran to the window. The ambulance was at our neighborhood entrance, lights flashing, sirens wailing. And blocking the gate with her silver Mercedes was Margaret Patterson. She was arguing with the paramedics through her window. Not moving. Just sitting there, blocking the only entrance. Something inside me broke. I ran outside, leaving my daughter dying on our floor. "Move. Move your car." Margaret turned, saw me, and her face hardened. "They need to use the service entrance. Emergency vehicles disrupting the main entrance creates an atmosphere of. My daughter is dying." I screamed. "Move your car now. There are procedures, Mr. Richardson. Rules exist for a reason. The service entrance is specifically for. She's not breathing. Move." There's no need to shout. I'm simply enforcing neighborhood standards that we all agreed to. The ambulance tried to go around, but the entrance was narrow, with decorative walls on both sides. Margaret's car blocked it completely. The driver tried to inch past, but couldn't. Precious seconds ticked by. 30 seconds. 45 seconds. Inside our house, Emma's heart was failing. Each second was brain cells dying. Each second was her slipping away. A neighbor, Mr. Chen, ran over and started yelling at Margaret. "Are you insane? Move your car." Other neighbors gathered. Someone tried to physically pull Margaret from her car. She locked the doors and called police on her cell phone, speaking calmly. "Yes, I'm at Riverside Meadows. I'm being assaulted. Multiple people are trying to break into my vehicle. There's a dying child," someone screamed. Margaret's response was chilling. "That's not my problem. If they can't handle emergencies without disrupting the neighborhood, they shouldn't live here." Mr. Chen's teenage son grabbed a baseball bat from his car. "I'll break the window. I don't care." Only then, seeing the bat, did Margaret finally move. Not because she cared about Emma. Because she cared about her car. Finally, after 93 seconds, I counted every single one, Margaret pulled forward just enough for the ambulance to squeeze past. The paramedics raced to our house. I led them to Emma. She was gray. Completely gray. Lifeless. No pulse, one paramedic said. Starting compressions. The world went silent. I couldn't hear anything except the voice in my head screaming, "No, no, no, not my baby, not my Emma, please God, not my baby." They worked on her for 6 minutes in our living room. 6 minutes of chest compressions, of desperate intervention, of my daughter being dead on our carpet while I stood there, useless and terrified. "We've got a rhythm," Rosa finally said. "Weak, but it's there. We need to move now." They loaded Emma into the ambulance. I climbed in beside her, holding her cold hand. "Sir," Rosa said gently, her face grave, "she had a heart attack. A major one. That delay." She didn't finish, but I understood. Margaret Patterson's 93 seconds might have killed my daughter. As we pulled out, I saw Margaret standing by her car, arms crossed, looking irritated. Not concerned. Not remorseful. Irritated that her afternoon had been disrupted. I made a promise then. If Emma survived, Margaret Patterson would pay. If Emma didn't survive, Margaret Patterson would spend the rest of her life in prison. Either way, her days of hurting people were over. The next 6 hours were hell. Emma was in surgery. Doctors said her heart had stopped for over 8 minutes total. 8 minutes without oxygen. 8 minutes of death. They were doing everything they could, but I needed to prepare for the worst. Even if she survived, there could be brain damage. Permanent disability. She might never wake up. I sat in the surgical waiting room, head in my hands, and for the first time since Sarah died, I prayed. I begged God, the universe, anyone listening. Take me instead. Let her live. Please let her live. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I filed a formal complaint about today's disturbance. The ambulance caused significant property disruption and emotional distress to residents. Additionally, your negligence in managing your daughter's condition is affecting the entire community. Please consider relocation. Margaret Patterson, HOA President. I stared at the message. My daughter was potentially dying, brain damaged, or worse, and this woman was worried about tire marks on grass. Something cold settled in my chest. Something dark and focused. Margaret Patterson had made the worst mistake of her life. She'd hurt my daughter. And she'd forgotten who I was. I wasn't just a grieving father. I was the district attorney of Cumberland County. I had resources, connections, and most importantly, I knew how to build an ironclad case. I forwarded her text to my email. Evidence. Then I called my investigator, Marcus Chen. "Marcus, I need everything on Margaret Patterson. Financial records, social media, history, everything. And I need it fast. What am I looking for? Anything. Everything. This woman just nearly killed Emma. I want to know every secret she's ever kept." "You got it, boss. How is Emma?" I couldn't answer that. My voice broke. "I'll have preliminary findings by morning," Marcus said quietly. At 9:47 p.m., Dr. Morrison emerged from surgery, still in scrubs. I stood, my legs barely supporting me. "She's alive," he said, and I collapsed back into the chair, shaking. "It was close, Mr. Richardson. Very close. The heart attack caused significant damage. The delay in treatment." He paused. "Those 93 seconds matter. They caused additional damage that could have been prevented. Will she be okay? She's a fighter. She'll live." But she'll need extensive recovery, possibly another surgery later. There's some concern about brain function due to oxygen loss, but we won't know for a few days. Brain damage? We're hoping minimal, but it's too early to tell. I went to her room. Emma looked so small in the hospital bed, tubes and wires everywhere. Machines beeped and hummed. Her chest rose and fell with help from a ventilator. But she was alive. My daughter was alive. I took her hand and broke down. All the fear, the rage, the grief I'd been holding, it poured out. I sobbed until I had nothing left. "I'm so sorry, baby," I whispered. "I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you. I should have stopped her. I should have done something sooner." When Emma finally woke the next day, groggy and confused, her first words broke my heart. "Dad, is Mrs. Patterson mad at me?" Even after everything, after nearly dying, she was worried about Margaret Patterson. That's when I knew the psychological damage went deep. Margaret hadn't just endangered Emma's life, she'd stolen her sense of safety, her sense of worth, her belief that she had a right to exist. "Don't worry about Mrs. Patterson," I said softly, stroking her hair. "She's not going to hurt you anymore. I promise." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I heard her, Dad. When I was on the floor, before I passed out completely, I heard her outside arguing. She stopped the ambulance because of me. Because I'm too much trouble." "No, sweetheart. No. You're not trouble. She's sick. She's a cruel, sick person. I don't want to be a burden anymore," she sobbed. "Maybe she's right. Maybe we should move. Maybe everyone would be better off if..." She didn't finish, but I understood. My daughter, my beautiful brave daughter, was thinking maybe the world would be better if she wasn't in it. "Emma, listen to me," I said firmly, making her look at me. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me. You are not a burden. You are my purpose. Do you understand? If something happened to you, I wouldn't survive it." She cried harder. "But Dad, I cause so many problems. The ambulances, the medical equipment, all the rules we break. Mrs. Patterson is right. We don't fit here. Then we'll change the rules. We'll change everything. But we're not moving, and you're not giving up. You're going to get better, and we're going to make sure no one ever treats another family the way Margaret treated us. Okay?" She nodded weakly, but I could see the damage was done. I was the district attorney, but I couldn't personally prosecute Margaret, conflict of interest. But I could investigate. And I could ensure justice was served. Marcus came through. Within 48 hours, he had a file on Margaret Patterson 3 inches thick. What I found was stunning. For 5 years, she'd been stealing from the HOA. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. Fake vendor invoices for landscaping that never happened. Inflated service charges where she'd pocket. The difference. Ghost employees on the community payroll. She'd stolen over $200,000. But it went deeper. Margaret Patterson had a pattern. I found 3 other families she'd driven out of Riverside Meadows. All had children with disabilities. The Kowalskis had a grandson with Down syndrome. Margaret filed noise complaints constantly, claiming the boy's sounds disturbed the neighborhood. She fined them for property issues that didn't exist. She made their lives so miserable they moved out after 8 months. The Rodriguez family had a daughter with cerebral palsy who needed a service dog. Margaret banned the dog, citing pet restrictions, despite federal law protecting service animals. When they fought back, Margaret made up violations daily until they couldn't afford the fines. The Chen family had a son with autism who had meltdowns. Margaret called CPS multiple times, claiming abuse, forcing the family to endure investigations. She poisoned the neighborhood against them until they left in shame. Margaret preyed on vulnerable families because they were easy targets. She was a bully who'd found a system to exploit. And she'd gotten away with it for years because no one had the resources or energy to fight back. But the ambulance incident was different. That crossed into criminal territory. That was reckless endangerment. That was attempted murder. I contacted the state attorney general's office. I provided my evidence, recused myself due to conflict of interest, but made sure they understood the urgency. The AG, Patricia Williams, called me personally. "James, this is horrific. I'm assigning our best prosecutor. We're going after her on every possible charge. Patricia, she nearly killed my daughter. I know. And she's going to pay. I promise you that." Within a week, Margaret Patterson was facing multiple charges: embezzlement, reckless endangerment, interference with emergency services, discrimination under the Fair Housing Act, criminal harassment, and witness intimidation after she threatened Mr. Chen for speaking to investigators. News of Margaret's arrest spread through Riverside Meadows like wildfire. The HOA held an emergency meeting. I attended, Emma beside me in her wheelchair. She insisted on coming despite just being released from the hospital. The community center was packed. Over 200 people crammed into a space meant for 100. Neighbors I barely knew came up, apologizing, saying they didn't know how bad it was. Many admitted they'd been afraid of Margaret too. Mr. Chen spoke first, his voice shaking with anger. "Margaret Patterson has terrorized this neighborhood for years. She's stolen from us, lied to us, and last week, she nearly killed a child. She stood there and blocked an ambulance, knowing that child was dying, and she didn't care." The crowd murmured in agreement. I move for her immediate removal as HOA president and a full audit of all HOA finances. The vote was unanimous. 200 hands rose. Then something unexpected happened. Mrs. Kowalski, an elderly woman I'd seen around, stood up. Her hands trembled as she gripped the microphone. "I want to apologize to Emma and Mr. Richardson," she said, voice shaking. 5 years ago, Margaret drove my son's family out of this neighborhood. My grandson has Down syndrome. He's the sweetest boy, but Margaret made their life unbearable. She called him disruptive. She said he was lowering property values. Tears streamed down her face. And I said nothing. I watched my own grandchild be bullied out, and I didn't speak up because I was afraid Margaret would come after me next. I was a coward. She walked over to Emma and knelt beside her wheelchair. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I should have stood up sooner." Emma, tears streaming down her face, took Mrs. Kowalski's hand. "It's okay. You're here now. That's what matters." Mrs. Kowalski sobbed. "You're a better person than I am, child." One by one, other neighbors came forward. They shared stories of Margaret's cruelty, her manipulation, her abuse of power. Some cried. Some were angry. But everyone agreed, never again. The meeting went on for 3 hours. Story after story. Margaret had destroyed so many lives. A new HOA board was elected that night. Their first act was to void every fine Margaret had ever issued. Their second act was to remove all discriminatory policies and formally apologize to the families Margaret had harmed. Their third act was to install a memorial bench in the community park dedicated to creating a neighborhood where everyone belongs. Emma chose the inscription, "Kindness is stronger than rules." Margaret Patterson's trial began 3 months later. I sat in the courtroom every day, Emma beside me when she was strong enough. The prosecution was led by Assistant Attorney General Michael Torres. He'd reviewed my evidence and built a devastating case. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records showing embezzlement. Testimony from families she'd harmed. Video footage from Mr. Chen's security camera showing her blocking the ambulance. Margaret's lawyer tried to paint her as a dedicated volunteer who made mistakes. He claimed she didn't realize the severity of Emma's condition. Then the prosecution played the recording. Mr. Chen had filmed the entire ambulance incident on his phone. We all sat and watched. The audio was crystal clear. Emergency. We have a cardiac patient. Use the service entrance. Ma'am, a child is dying. Please move your car. Rules are rules. This entrance is for residents only. She's not breathing. Please. I'll move when proper protocols are followed. She's dying. That's unfortunate, but I have a responsibility to this community. The courtroom was silent. Several jurors looked horrified. One was crying. Then came the testimonies of the families she destroyed. Mrs. Kowalski testified about her grandson. She described how a happy, thriving boy became withdrawn and anxious because of Margaret's constant harassment. Lisa Chen testified about the CPS investigations. Each time they came, they found nothing. But each investigation traumatized my son. All because Margaret weaponized a system meant to protect children. Then came Emma's testimony. She was 16 now, still frail but stronger. She wheeled herself to the witness stand, refused the offer to testify from her wheelchair, and insisted on sitting in the witness chair. It took 3 attempts and obvious pain, but she made it. Tell us about Mrs. Patterson, Torres said gently. Emma's voice was quiet but steady. She made me feel like I didn't deserve to exist. Every time I saw her, she looked at me like I was trash. Like my oxygen tank was an insult to her neighborhood. Did you hear her the day of the incident? Emma nodded, tears falling. I was on the floor. I couldn't breathe. My chest hurt so bad. I thought I was dying. I could hear the sirens, and I thought I was saved. Then I heard her voice outside, arguing, refusing to move. What did you think when you heard that? Emma's voice broke. I thought maybe she was right. Maybe I was too much trouble. Maybe it would be easier for everyone if I just stopped fighting. The courtroom was dead silent. Several jurors were openly crying. Emma, Torres said softly, did you try to give up that day? Yes, Emma whispered. For a few seconds, I stopped trying to breathe. Because Mrs. Patterson made me believe I wasn't worth saving. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes. They found Margaret Patterson guilty on all counts. At sentencing, Judge Catherine Morrison addressed Margaret directly. Mrs. Patterson, you were given a position of trust. You used it to torment vulnerable families, to steal money, and ultimately to endanger a child's life. Your actions were not just negligent, they were malicious. You saw a dying child as an inconvenience. The judge's voice hardened. I've been a judge for 23 years. I've rarely seen someone as coldly indifferent to human suffering as you. She sentenced Margaret to 8 years in prison, plus restitution of all stolen funds, 5 years probation after release, a permanent ban from serving in any HOA, and mandatory counseling. As Margaret was led away in handcuffs, she finally looked at Emma. Not with remorse, but with pure hatred. Emma met her gaze and didn't look away. She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She just looked back with something that might have been pity. The months after the trial were about rebuilding. Emma started intensive therapy. She had good days and bad days. But slowly, day by day, the doubt in her eyes began to fade. The neighborhood transformed too. The new HOA board removed dozens of discriminatory rules. They created a community support fund for families with medical needs. Mrs. Kowalski became Emma's surrogate grandmother. She'd come over for tea every Sunday. Mr. Chen taught Emma chess on his porch. He said she had a strategic mind and should consider law school someday. The Rodriguez family moved back. Their daughter and Emma became close friends. The community that had once stood silent became a shield around us. When Emma had another medical emergency 6 months later, 3 neighbors showed up at the hospital. When she needed home care, neighbors volunteered. When she struggled with schoolwork, neighborhood kids formed a tutoring group. Margaret had tried to isolate us. Instead, she'd created a family. On Emma's 17th birthday, she asked for something specific. "I want to speak at the next HOA meeting," she said. The community center was packed again. Emma stood at the podium. She'd fought to be able to stand for this moment. I stood nearby, ready to catch her if needed, but she waved me back. 2 years ago, Mrs. Patterson almost killed me, she began, her voice clear and strong. Not just by blocking that ambulance, but by making me believe I didn't deserve to live. She looked at my disability and saw only problems, never a person. She paused. "But all of you, you saw me. You stood up. You showed me that I matter. That my life has value. That I belong." Her voice got stronger. "I'm going to law school. I'm going to fight for people like me, people who are vulnerable, who need someone to stand up for them." "What did you learn, Emma?" Mr. Chen called out, smiling. Emma smiled back. "That one person's cruelty can hurt, but a community's kindness can heal. Mrs. Patterson tried to break me, but you all put me back together. Thank you for healing me." The room erupted in applause. Emma graduated from law school yesterday. I sat in the audience, watching her walk across that stage, and I couldn't stop smiling. She'd done it. Despite everything, the heart attacks, the surgeries, the trauma, she'd become the lawyer she'd promised to be. Her graduation speech was about justice and kindness, about protecting the vulnerable. She spoke about how one person's cruelty had nearly destroyed her, but how a community's love had saved her. The audience gave her a standing ovation that lasted 5 minutes. After the ceremony, we drove past our old neighborhood. Riverside Meadows had a new sign, "A community where everyone belongs." "Do you ever think about her?" Emma asked quietly. "Mrs. Patterson?" "Sometimes," I admitted. Margaret was still in prison, with 3 years left. "I do too," Emma said. "I used to hate her. I wanted her to suffer like I suffered. That's understandable. But now I just feel sad for her. She destroyed her own life. She had a family, a husband who divorced her, kids who won't speak to her. She lost everything, and for what? Because she couldn't stand the sight of my oxygen tank?" Emma shook her head. "I have everything, Dad. I have you, I have my education, I have friends, I have a future. She has nothing. And that's not because of what I did to her, it's because of what she did to herself." "That's very mature of you." Emma smiled sadly. "It's not maturity, Dad. It's survival. Hate would have destroyed me too. I chose to focus on the people who loved me instead. Dad, I got a job offer. The Disability Rights Legal Center. I start in September." "Emma, that's incredible. I'm going to make sure no other kid has to go through what I did. I'm going to be the person I needed when Mrs. Patterson was making our lives hell. Your mom would be so proud." "I know," Emma said softly. "I feel her with me sometimes. Especially during the hard moments. I'm sitting at Emma's wedding. She's marrying Rachel, a pediatric surgeon who specializes in treating children with heart defects, the same condition Emma has. Emma looks beautiful in her white dress, healthier than I ever imagined possible. During her vows, Emma says something that makes everyone cry. 20 years ago, someone tried to convince me I didn't deserve to exist. That my life was a burden. She looks at me, tears streaming. My father taught me that wasn't true. He showed me that love is stronger than hate. Then she looks at Rachel. And you've shown me that my heart, my broken, scarred, imperfect heart, is capable of loving and being loved completely." At the reception, Mrs. Kowalski, now 102 and somehow still alive, raises her glass. "I've known Emma since she was a scared 15-year-old girl being bullied by a tyrant. I did nothing then, and I've regretted it every day. She pauses. But I've watched this remarkable woman transform pain into purpose. I've watched her save hundreds of families. I've watched her change laws, change hearts, change the world. Margaret Patterson tried to erase Emma Richardson. Instead, Emma's name will be remembered long after all of us are gone. Later, Emma and I have a quiet moment. Dad, I need to tell you something. My heart clenches. What is it? Rachel and I are adopting a little girl. She has a heart condition similar to mine. We're naming her Sarah. After Mom. I start crying immediately. Emma, that's wonderful. I think about her every day, Emma says. I think about how she died in that car accident, and how I was supposed to die too. But I survived. And I've spent 20 years wondering why. And have you found an answer? Emma smiles through tears. I think so. I survived because there were people who needed me to. I survived because Mom couldn't stay, but I could. And I've tried to make my survival mean something. Margaret Patterson is gone now. She died alone years later, no family present. Emma gave the eulogy at her funeral. Margaret Patterson was a complicated person, Emma said. She caused tremendous pain. She nearly killed me. But Margaret's real punishment wasn't prison. It was losing the capacity for human connection. She died alone because she never learned to love others. I don't forgive her. But I pity her. Because in trying to make others feel small, she made herself smaller. People ask me if I have any regrets. Only one, I wish I'd acted sooner. But Emma says something different. Dad, if we hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't fight as hard. Our pain had purpose. Margaret Patterson set out to make our lives unbearable. Instead, she gave Emma a mission that has changed thousands of lives.